My name's Ted Bisner, and I don't have a whiteboard, so I went out in the garage and I found a nice clear piece of drywall, and I scratched out a 7-year timeline to demonstrate what we've been through here over the last 7 years in a timeline perspective, so that you can see how damages that have happened since the original incident, which I'm calling Ground Zero on April 15th, 2010, have affected and impacted our lives here. On April 15th, 2015, a property that we owned in East Grand Rapids at 1647 Franklin was stolen with over $100,000 worth of equity by a lawyer, Edward Winkler. Edward Winkler drafted a fraudulent fraudulent deed, and went to the Register of Deeds in Kent County and recorded it. And that was the fraud. That was how this theft of the real property and its equity, over $100,000, was taken from us with that fraudulent mechanical tool, perpetrating this crime against myself and my family. Winkler claimed the property abandoned on April 1st. We had 15 days to rebut that. We had through April 16th, 2010 to let them know that the property was indeed not abandoned, which we did. But they didn't even wait till the end of the 15 days to record this fraudulent deed. The deed again, or the notice of abandonment, was posted on the property on April 1st. Starting the day after April 1st, which would have been April 16th, would have been April 2nd, giving us 15 full days, which would have taken us to April 16th at midnight on April 16th, which was a Friday. So essentially, the first time that Winkler could record the deed would have been the following Monday, or April 19th. But to get this property back for his clients, he fraudulently created a new deed, recorded it on the afternoon of April the 15th, and came to the property and personally executed a self-help eviction of our buyer, whom we were waiting to close on his loan. Stephen Hawthorne's his name. And he'd already moved in. He'd moved in prior to April 1st and was living there. He wanted the house real bad so that his daughter could attend the East Grand Rapids schools, which are well known throughout the state as being top-notch schools. So we're waiting for our buyer to close on his loan, and the bank does this bullshit with through their bullshit attorney, Edward Winkler, calling the property abandoned when it wasn't, and not allowing us to rebut that presumption by not giving us the due process, which is also a conspired deprivation of constitutional rights secured by the Constitution. It's actually a color of law violation under Title 18, Sections 241 and 242 by an officer of the court. We ultimately hired a lawyer, Varnum. They own one of the skyscrapers in Grand Rapids, or at least they have their name all over it. It's Varnum. They were going to represent us here to solve this simple problem. This was a treble damages case. We had over $100,000 worth of equity. The property was sold. What should have happened here in April, at some point thereafter, is we should have been awarded our losses ×3 plus any fees, to say the least. That's without any other damages or statutory interest. So that's what happened to us on April 15th, 2010. A lawyer stole our house, stole our equity, cut us off the knees. And I'm going to back up here just a second, because coming into 2010, we owned 7 properties, which we've lost them all now. 7287 West Fremont, 1647 Franklin, East Grand Rapids. 7287 Fremont was the Blanchard house that we lost September 17th, 2015, along with its contents. 1647 Franklin was East Grand Rapids, stolen by Edward Winkler. 1432 Kalamazoo Avenue in Grand Rapids. 904, 906 Kalamazoo Avenue is a two-family home. We owned a property at 2272, I forget the street, in Saginaw, another two-family. We owned a lot on a golf course in Vassar, Michigan, and 829 East Walton, which was taken later this year by the Isabella County Sheriff's Department without any interaction from the court. And what I'm trying to show here is that when this ground zero day happened, our complaint was against this lawyer, Edward Winkler. And what I'm going to show you is that over the next 7 years through today, the fact that we named a lawyer in an action was an act by us to demonstrate the criminality of a lawyer, and the state wasn't going to have it. So, you know, the bar runs the state of Michigan, and every state bar runs every state government. That's how it works. So this was ground zero for us here on April 15th, 2010. Now when this happened, we were getting set up to have a nice residual income, to have all of our expenses taken care of by our rental properties and be able to sell some properties like we were trying to do here with the 1647 Franklin property. The house across the street was nearly a $500,000 house. The house just next to it was, again, over $650,000 house. And we purchased this property for $44,000, put a ton of labor and effort into it, and got it to appraise for over $220,000. And the bank stole it by buying through Edward Winkler, committing the crime of fraud against my family. Now on the 15th, when the bank showed up with this freshly recorded deed, we called the police, and two officers from the East Grand Rapids Police Department showed up, and they said, well, we're really sorry, there's nothing we can do because they've got a recorded deed. I couldn't argue with them because they did have a recorded deed, and that's kind of where we left it. And I figured at some point along the line here, we would be made whole. We hired what we thought was the best law firm in Grand Rapids. And about that, Varnum ended up, after representing us for a period of time with regard to this property, quit. They just quit. They said there was a conflict of interest, and they fucking quit. Leaving us, with our holding the bag. We've got this lawsuit started, and now all of a sudden they're bailing on us. Well, it was because it was against another lawyer, and Varnum saw that this other lawyer was committing these frauds and didn't want to go after another lawyer. So again, this is being ground zero, and there's two cases in Kent County. I'm going to just read the numbers here. Because I had to look them up again. All my paperwork was stolen down here. 10 for the year -04458 Charlie Zulu, and 11 for the year -03465 Charlie Hotel. Those are the two case files that were filed in court. And I'm not sure if either one of those were created by Varnum. But these two, I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, were the cases that I launched myself, and I don't know if the Varnum number was used in one of those or not. So anyways, coming into April 10th, we had 7 properties, which are all now lost. This really crippled us, and a few months later, we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do about this. September comes along, September 27th, 2010. We had bought a property, 829 East Walton in Mount Pleasant, on the previous December, which would be up here. December 15th, we consummated the contract, and we've been paying on that property January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Right here, I don't have it written in yet. We filed for bankruptcy because at some point in July, the person we bought it from was listing this property for sale with a realtor, pretending like we hadn't bought it. And then on September 27, 2010, the gal we bought it from, Shelley Sweet, worked for the Isabella County Sheriff's Department. She convinced her coworkers and friends at the Sheriff's Department that we hadn't made any payments, we were trashing the house, and we forced her into foreclosure. We were protected by a bankruptcy, and this is when we filed a bankruptcy on August 10th. And we should have had protection under the bankruptcy laws. We were protected by an automatic stay in this bankruptcy. Shelley Sweet, the gal we bought the house from, moved to evict us in August in the county district court, and I should have a case file for that, but I don't know what it is right now. On August 18th, she had an attorney for that. I believe it was Nancy Gallagher. Okay, and when we filed bankruptcy on August 10th, we notified both Shelley Sweet and Nancy Gallagher that we were in bankruptcy. We were protected by a bankruptcy stay. And at some point between there and here, there was an eviction hearing. We didn't go. Our attorney, Leslie Honig, went, and before 3 or 4 days prior to that hearing, Leslie had filed a suggestion of bankruptcy to let the court know that we were protected by the automatic stay. Judge Rush didn't give a shit. He ordered a default order of possession to Shelley Sweet as a county worker for the Sheriff's Department. Ignored our bankruptcy stay, issued Shelley Sweet an order of possession, and we filed a motion in those proceedings to set aside that stay in light of what was really going on. That hearing was scheduled for September 28th, or 28th or 29th, I can't remember. Again, a lot of the paperwork that we have is gone now because of the events that have happened here. Anyways, Shelley Sweet came in to our house with their friends and coworkers and cleaned us out. They took all of our property on the weekend prior to September 27th, 2010, which was a Monday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, while we were out of town, they came in and cleaned us out. We came back to the property on the 27th and called the police to report a breaking and entering, and the breaking and entering also resulted in the changing of the locks, so we couldn't even get into the house. Ultimately, we had idiot Deputy Clinton Steiner here 3 times on the 27th, and on the 3rd time, he kidnapped me and took me to jail for a day, and for misuse of 911, trying to report the police stealing all our shit, and Shelley Sweet stealing our stuff on that weekend. Ultimately, 1 year later, we filed an action against Isabella County. The case number on that is 11 for the year -9480-Charlie Hotel. And again, that was filed a year later. Now, here in this span, we lost this house by the fraud of a lawyer. We lost this house to Shelley Sweet, who is an Isabella County Sheriff's Department employee. And I think these two things were related in that I was going against the state here. I was going against a state bar lawyer, and we made a fuss. We've been in touch with Varnum, who probably sold us out to the state themselves. And then all of a sudden here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months later, we lose another house. And when we lost this, we lost everything in it, okay? The sheriff's department, Shelley Sweet and her co-workers came in and cleaned us out. Took our beds, dressers, clothes, food, whatever. They took it all. Everything, almost everything that was in the house. Right after that happened, October, at some point here at the end of October, my mom was really ill, and I actually moved to Florida for a little bit. And then we're freaking out here. We just lost a house here in East Grand Rapids. We just lost a house in Mount Pleasant, all to criminal activity. Prior to my mom passing away in November, I moved my wife and my kids to Washington State to get them out of Michigan. And they came back at some point in 2011 when we launched this lawsuit. In 2011, it was on March 1st, 2011, I went in and talked to Detective Sergeant at the Michigan State Police, and I have a report here that was created by Detective Sergeant Jerry Carter. I haven't talked about him too much over the course of my videos and stuff, but on March 1st, I'll just read what he wrote. And this report has nothing to do with what I was at the Michigan State Police to report. This is reporting a volatile person. Okay, so I went in to report the crimes that took place on and before September 27, 2010 by the Isabella County Sheriff's Department. And here we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later. I'm in the Michigan State Police Post on March 1st of 2011, and I'm reporting the crimes of the police. And this asshole, Jerry Carter, and I didn't even find this for a couple of years, but I ended up getting it in a FOIA request. The day I was in there, he filled out or created this complaint, and it's against me for having been there. While at the post, approximately 4 p.m. on 3/1/11, I met with Theodore Visner at the front desk. Visner told me he wanted to make a complaint against Isabella County Sheriff Department, specifically against Deputy Steiner. Visner told me back in September 2010 he was illegally evicted from his home by the Sheriff's Department. Visner didn't have any documentation related to the incident. He brought a piece of paper with 1 or 2 lines stating that he was the victim of illegal activity at the hands of the Sheriff's Department. And this asshole, this asshole cop from the Michigan State Police by the name of Jerry Carter, he's a detective sergeant, according to this. Instead of taking a complaint from me, a criminal complaint against the Sheriff's Department, he writes this volatile person complaint against me. And it goes on, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to read it now, but I will post a link to it. So 2010 really sucked. My mom died in November, and earlier in the year we'd lost 2 properties, which ultimately led to the collapse of our business, led to the loss of, as of today, the loss of all 7 of these properties. And these are all approximately caused losses based on the fact that Edward Winkler fraudulently created a deed on April 15th and filed it with the Register of Deeds, stealing this property and its equity. So boom, we just lost a house in equity. It was a beautiful show house. We put a lot of effort into it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months later, boom, another house stolen by the Sheriff's Department in Isabella County. And one of the biggest reasons I wanted to cut this video was to show, because what just happened, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, almost to the day, losing another house to the same Isabella County Sheriff's Department and all of its contents. 5 years previous, the Sheriff's Department stole our house at 829 East Walton in Mount Pleasant, plus its contents. Case file 11-9480-CH. And down here again on September 17th, Constitution Day, between 30 and 40 officers took me down like I was a freaking terrorist and stole this property and stole all my computers and all my camera equipment because of all of the work I've been doing to expose the crime and corruption in Isabella County. They didn't want me making videos. They didn't want me to have all of the paperwork and all of the research I'd accumulated over those 5 years. They raided my house and they stole what they wanted and they threw the rest into dumpsters. I lost tons and tons of legal research. I lost, like I said, 3 laptop computers, several external hard drives, and all of my electronic media like thumb drives and stuff, and also a couple digital cameras that were really nice, and I still haven't replaced them. So just backing up here, huge incident, and my point here is I'm trying to demonstrate that, you know, this shouldn't have happened. This, of course, shouldn't have happened. My mom went to heaven after surviving 2 terminal illnesses, twice the time that she was given. So she had lung cancer, she had myelodysplasia, and she'd already lived past there a good deal, and she lived a very good life, and it was time. But then we started this lawsuit 1 year after, on the anniversary of this. At the time we had the lawsuit going here. I was literally kicking the lawyers' asses in court with this, and ultimately Judge Lieber just threw it out after having a hearing like right at Christmas in a snowstorm or whatever. And so we're losing grip. This happens. We launch this suit and it goes for like, I forget how long it went. It's somewhere in 2013, I think. First part of 2013, I believe. Now this is really important. We had already gotten a default judgment against Robert Wheeler, who was Shelley Sweet's boyfriend, who I had pictures of in my house on the weekend we were out of town. And of course, Shelley Sweet, his girlfriend, works for the Sheriff's Department, and the Sheriff's Department wasn't interested in helping us because they were more interested in covering their own ass. So I have Robert Wheeler in a default. Robert Wheeler defended himself, and he did a shitty job. He acquiesced to a modification to our complaint and then failed to answer it. So we earned a default against him, and at some point I believe I'm going to have to try harder to find some paperwork to reflect the motion for summary judgment put forth by the county and the county lawyers. Paul Chamberlain heard that in court. In court, Isabella County's lawyer argued that the property they stole on the 27th was declared abandoned by the bankruptcy. I don't know how many people know what a bankruptcy is or how it works, but basically you're turning over all your property. Here it is, here's everything. And the trustee for the bankruptcy will abandon his claim on your exemptions, and that's what happened. So they said, yeah, you can have your clothes, you can have your furniture, you can have your wedding ring, you can have this, you can have that. So they abandoned it, not literally, they abandoned their claim to that property so that we could keep it. So that's the property that was stolen here. And fucking Paul Chamberlain heard the county's lawyer argue that the bankruptcy trustee had abandoned all of our property, so it was the Sheriff's Department, they were allowed to steal it. Or it wasn't stealing because the bankruptcy attorney who had abandoned their claim on it so that we could maintain it, gave them permission to come in and steal it. So anyways, this motion for summary disposition was heard at some point, and I don't have the dates because all the paperwork's been stolen. lost and destroyed. And at the same time, Robert Wheeler submitted a motion asking for set aside of the default against him, and also to be dismissed from the case along with the county, or he'd start squealing like a canary, I guess. But anyways, Paul Chamberlain sat on it for a few months and then returned an order and an opinion granting the county's and Robert Wheeler's motion to set aside and dismiss him, and the county's motion to set aside, or not, they didn't have a motion to set aside, but just to dismiss him. So Paul Chamberlain, after wasting more of her life, dismissed everybody from the case, and we timely filed an appeal with the Michigan Appellate Court. And this is really interesting, and we filed an appeal with the Michigan Appellate Court. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not required to follow all the rules for lawyers, and I told them that in my appeal. I think my appeal was 60 pages or thereabouts. And I get this letter from the clerk saying that I have to conform to all of these rules for lawyers, and I had already addressed that. And I said, well, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Read it. Read what I sent you. It was all the case law was included that showed the appellate court that I didn't need to conform to the standards established for lawyers. Well, then I get this letter back saying, well, we struck your brief, your appeal brief, and I sent him a letter back saying, well, you can't do that. You can't strike my shit just because you want to. And this is all happening by some clerk at the Michigan Appellate Court. One clerk. It hasn't even got to the judges yet. So one clerk is sorry for the interruption, my camera tripped. So all of this correspondence is happening between a clerk and myself, and I gave her all the case law, and I'm trying to argue with a clerk that just had obviously receiving directions from somewhere. Anyways, the clerk struck my brief. And later, the clerk dismissed my appeal because it wasn't accompanied by a brief. That's pretty damn convenient for the Michigan Appellate Court, because this case file that I can't afford to get and replace because it was stolen has everything in it. So I'm trapped. I've been trapped this whole time. We lost 7 properties altogether as of September 17th, 2015. I was incarcerated unlawfully for calling the police here. And here's another thing. I was allegedly arrested. I was actually kidnapped, thrown in jail on September 27th. I was in jail overnight, and I was supposed to see a judge and be arraigned, but that never happened. In fact, they held my arraignment over my head for 4 months. Okay, now I couldn't move with my family out of state here at some point in early November before my mom passed away, but I had to get my family out of the state. But I couldn't go with them because I was still under threat of arraignment for calling 911 to report the crimes of the Isabella County Sheriff's Department, right here. So, and this we're going to arraign you at any second, so don't leave the state, don't go anywhere, was in place for 3.5 or 4 months. So 1, 2, 3, 4. At some point in January, I had filed for a personal protection order against the idiot Sheriff Deputy Clinton Steiner that had just executed the theft of the property here for his coworker, and the county prosecutor had to represent him. So my tax dollars are paying for this idiot criminal cop to have the county prosecutor defend him in court against my personal protection order, which at the time seemed to be the logical next step. This guy's terrorized us, he's stolen property from us, he wears a gun and a badge, nobody's going to take a police report against him, so I'll go to court and I'll get a personal protection order. Well, when the county decided to represent Clinton Steinert against my personal protection order, they had to take my my arraignment or the ability to prosecute me here for misuse of 911 and tell it to the Attorney General, and they had to assign Gratiot County to handle whether or not they were going to press charges against me for calling 911. And the Michigan Attorney General assigned it to Gratiot County. I believe it was Gratiot or Clare. In any event, Gratiot or Clare, whoever it was that received that assignment, dismissed the charges the same day. So, and that was in January 2011 sometime. And the personal protection order requested against Steinert was denied. Clinton Steinert said nothing in court, was represented, like I said, with my tax dollars and the county prosecutor. So you can see how everything that I've been working on, is really been stacked against us. Okay. When we filed for bankruptcy on August 10th to earn the stay so that this wouldn't happen, but it happened anyways, there was also a fraud that took place on the federal court. Mount Pleasant attorney Bruce Havens, and there's a YouTube video for this, and the actual hearing is online, submitted a document to essentially recreate the eviction process through the federal court. Now, federal courts don't get involved in eviction proceedings. That's not what they do. That takes place in the county courts. So Bruce Havens created this document titled Notice of Intent to Sell and Take Possession. And he filed it on Monday, September 20th, 2010. Now, this Notice of Intent to Sell was actually the filing of criminal intent in the federal court. It said, I'm going to take in 5 days the house and its contents. That's what it said. So on September 20th, 2010, Bruce Havens filed this notice of criminal intent in the federal court, specifying the crimes to be carried out. And I need to put that case number up here too. Okay, and that was in our bankruptcy. So Shelley Sweet now has this notice of intent to sell and take possession of our house and uses it like an eviction. So it's 2 pages. On the 27th, we called the cops. Shelley Sweet was the first one to arrive to the scene. Keep in mind, she's an Isabella County Sheriff's Department employee, and when we called 911, 911 call center is managed by the Isabella County Sheriff's Department. So it made sense. Shelley Sweet was the first one to arrive. Deputy Clinton Steinert arrived shortly after, and Shelley Sweet showed Clinton Steinert this 2-page notice of intent to sell and take possession, the criminal fraud filed in the federal court 7 days prior. There wasn't even time for us, and here's another deprivation of due process under color of law. There was no ability for us to have due process here because we had at minimum 14 days to object to this bullshit filing created by Bruce Havens on Monday, September 20th. We did object, okay, but it was after the fact. Still within time, mind you, but Shelley Sweet used this document already to steal our house and its contents on Monday, September 27th, and the 2 days prior while we were out of town. So anyways, October 6th, right here, we go to the federal court, and they're going to hear our objection hearing. And we're objecting to this bullshit filing by Bruce Havens, criminal fraud filing of criminal intent in the federal court, and the judge, fucking Judge Opperman, calls it a motion. Okay, when Bruce Havens filed this, he didn't call it a motion, and he didn't pay a motion fee. It was a filing of criminal intent. You don't have to pay for that. Well, not up front. You have to pay for it at the end. So anyways, at the soonest possible time, it was October 6th, an objection hearing was held to hear the now motion that was filed on the 20th and carried out on the 27th on October 6th. So on October 6th, we essentially, Opperman, this fucking federal court Judge Opperman, heard a motion hearing for a motion filed on Monday, September 20th and executed on the 27th, but the motion hearing was next month on October 6th. Okay, so Opperman was in on this whole fraud. Okay, it wasn't a motion hearing, but Opperman converted this fraudulent criminal intent filing into a motion and then heard it on October 6th. And that generated an order on October 8th, where fortunately our ability to address all of these issues with regard to real and personal property was preserved indefinitely by Opperman's own order. But I don't think Opperman ever would have conceived the idea that I would discover that he converted the bullshit filing by Bruce Havens into a motion to be heard by the court on fucking events that already happened. Okay? And that's another reason why I wanted this timeline here, and hopefully you can see it all right, because that's what actually happened. So now Bruce Havens, in conjunction with Daniel S. Opperman, the federal court bankruptcy judge for the Eastern District of Michigan, essentially created, implemented, and used this tool to circumvent the automatic stay of bankruptcy, which we'd had back here. So having filed for bankruptcy did us absolutely no good, because we wanted to earn the stay, because Shelley Sweet, who used to work for my sister until my sister fired her, that sold us her house, claimed that this hardship or whatever, because my sister fired her, apparently she wasn't paying her underlying mortgage and she was heading for foreclosure and didn't want a foreclosure on her record. So she pretended that we didn't buy the house the previous December on the 15th, and she claimed that we hadn't paid her. Okay, and we were forcing her into bankruptcy. All of that's not true. Even if it were, this isn't the way the adversarial process works. You don't use the sheriff's department to get your way. You use the courts. Okay, so ultimately the eviction proceedings in the district court were canceled. Remember, I was in jail on the 27th through the 27th to the 28th. We had a motion in the district court to set aside the order of possession, and our hearing to set aside this order of possession was fucking canceled by Shelley Sweet. Okay, this is where we are, folks. Nobody can cancel our motion hearing except us. We can cancel it, we can change the date, but the adversary can't fuck with your hearing. So the motion hearing that we had to set aside the default judgment that was entered in error having to do with this piece of property never took place. And then on the 29th, Shelley Sweet and her lawyer, Bruce Havens, who concocted this bullshit through the federal court to steal our property, canceled the lower court proceedings having to do with the eviction, the summary proceedings. So on the 28th, we're supposed to have a hearing to set aside the bullshit order entered by Judge Rush, ordering possession of the property to Shelley Sweet, based on the fact that the court was already notified of our bankruptcy state and ignored it in error, in criminal error. And then on the 28th, we're going to submit all our check stubs to prove that we paid as agreed as per our contract with Shelley Sweet, and that we weren't actually month-to-month renters, and that we were actually buyers, and that we had actually made all payments as agreed, but we weren't allowed to enter that because those eviction proceedings in the lower court were closed by Bruce Havens and Shelley Sweet on the 29th, and somehow they managed to convince the clerk to cancel our motion hearing the previous day on the 28th to set aside the bullshit order of Judge Rush. I realize I know this better than the people I'm telling it to. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. My number is 989-954-2814. So anyways, there's two proceedings in two courts. Shelley Sweet's trying to evict us by pretending we hadn't bought the house in the lower court, because she works for the sheriff's department. The county is the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department is the county. The judges are the county. She was essentially being given everything she asked for because she was part of the county. Okay, and that's why all of these things are working together. There was also Bruce Haven. Shelley Sweet had two lawyers. Okay, Nancy Gallagher was doing the lower court, the district court, the eviction, the summary proceedings, and Mount Pleasant attorney Bruce Havens was drafting and filing the notice of criminal intent in our federal bankruptcy. Okay, by his design. He says that. You know, this notice of criminal intent filed in the federal court was by his design. Okay, frankly, that's what he said. So he designs this workaround to work around the bankruptcy stay, because my family lived here in this house, folks. All our stuff was here. And the procedures developed here by Bruce Havens were strictly criminal. Strictly criminal. And achieved the theft of this property. So, again, we've lost this property by a lawyer, Edward Winkler, and we lost this property by a lawyer by the name of Bruce Havens, and the federal court judge that converted this notice of intent to commit a crime into a motion hearing after all the criminal acts had been carried out in the same fucking motion by Daniel S. Opperman. So, yeah, I didn't know any of this, you know, when I was going through it, and that's how it works. People need to recognize that, you know, if you spend your entire life trying to be good and trying to stay out of court, and it's actually a bullet point on your mission statement for your business to stay the hell out of court. And as a general contractor, my entire life, that was very important to me, because going to court when you have clients and you're in construction, and everybody's heard the bad stuff about, you know, bad contractors, this and that and the other thing. And with one exception, I think I filed one lien on one property. I've stayed out of court because courts suck. So when this happened to us in 2010, I was not prepared. I didn't know how the courts worked. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't tell you the difference between a motion for summary disposition and a summary judgment. But I can today, because I've been through all of this. So, bam, bam. Lawyers stole two of my properties. Okay, lawyers run the state. Okay, lawyers are supposed to govern themselves in their own little monopoly. You know, you hear that lawyers are licensed by the state. That's bullshit. Okay, lawyers are members of the bar, and they're either loyal to the bar or they don't practice law, and that is their membership. But there is no state license. Okay, LARA, Michigan LARA, License and Regulatory Affairs, LARA. They're the ones that issue state license to do business. Okay, they don't issue licenses to lawyers. That is one of the most biggest bullshit things that a lawyer will tell you, is you're not licensed to practice law. Well, neither are you, fuckhead. Get out of my way. So anyways, sorry for the language. I'm just really worked up. I'm really pissed. Okay, because we're 7 years down the road from when this shit happened, right? 2010 sucked. 11, 12, 13. We sought redress in the courts and were denied at every junction. Okay, we filed for personal protection orders against Robert Wheeler, the girlfriend of Shelley Sweet, that stole our property. We got pictures of him in our house stealing our shit. The weekend, all our shit disappeared. And the sheriff's department is not going to write a criminal complaint against their own people. Shelley Sweet worked there. You know, we bought the house from her. She claimed we didn't pay her. Okay, and what really pisses me off now is that, you know, I cut the first shots of the Revolution video the day after we got screwed by Eric Janes on July 10th, 2015, when we went to an eviction proceeding, and he frickin' told us we didn't have standing to defend ourselves. Okay, that's great, Eric Janes. If we don't have standing, then dismiss this fucking case against us and tell the bank to pack sand. But that's not what happened. That's what should have happened. When defendants don't have standing, the case is dismissed. That's not what Eric Janes did. Eric Janes argued for the bank that we didn't have standing. Okay, that's not the judge's. How the fuck did he know? Okay, Eric Janes is telling us we don't have standing when it wasn't even an argument put forward by the bank? Oh wait, Eric Janes is appointed. He's a hitman. He's assigned to be here to cover for the criminal cartel known as the Judiciary in Isabella County. That's what he's doing here. So he's not even really a judge. Okay, and as a judge, he sat there and argued everything for the bank. The bank's lawyer sat there with a smile on his face, didn't say a word. Eric Janes did all the arguing, challenged our standing in court, denied us standing in court. My wife and I were there together. And on this day, July 10th, 2015, my wife and I were still married. Okay, separated, but still married. We went to these court proceedings as named defendants under threat of arrest. Okay, we had to go. And we got there to hear the judge say, we can't defend ourselves. Both of us, not just me. Doesn't matter whose name the house was deeded in. Okay, and I just noticed there's some other problems with what the judge said and what the judge did. And I'm just going to grab them here because it's important. Okay, I have the transcripts here, the actual court transcripts. Understand that transcripts are considered hearsay. So we will be drafting a subpoena as we move forward so that we can actually get a copy of the master record. Well, that's actually another issue for another time. My point here is that alleged appointed Judge Eric Janes told us that the issues that I was bringing up with regard to this eviction should have been heard in the previous court action to foreclose on our house. And Michigan's a non-judicial foreclosure state. And the way they just kind of plowed that out there was like there was some official legal proceeding against us to take our house in a foreclosure. That's not how it works here in Michigan. And these idiots know that. Okay, to foreclose on a property in Michigan, the bank puts a notice in the newspaper. That's as much proceedings as there are. Okay, the bank puts a notice in the newspaper for 4 or 5 weeks and then moves to evict. There are no court proceedings for foreclosure in Michigan. So Eric Janes knew that and he lied about it. He said all of our arguments against the eviction should have been brought up in the previous proceedings that didn't exist. Okay, so he's just lying his ass off to win for the bank and allowing the bank's lawyer to sit there with a smile on his face and not make a single point or argument. Just sit there. Just sit there, buddy. I'll take care of this. And then Eric Janes took care of it. First he denied us standing, both of us, my wife and I. And then he claims that there was some fictitious proceedings prior to that where we should have brought up our issues. That's fraud, Eric. You punk bastard. You fucking dick. There are no proceedings prior to the eviction in Michigan because Michigan's a non-judicial foreclosure state, you fucking dick. He knew this, okay? But again, what am I dealing with here? I'm dealing with the bar. Eric Janes is a member of the bar. Okay, up here, Bruce Havens and Nancy Geller, members of the bar. Back here, Edward Winkler, member of the bar. So who's pissing me off? Who's stealing all my shit? Okay, is it the bank back here? The bank didn't file a deed. The bank didn't create a fraudulent deed. Edward Winkler did. He's a bar member. Okay, what happened here? You know, 2 lawyers attacking us in 2 different courts created a fraud on the court, but it was all done by lawyers. And then the cop said, well, we can use that. You filed your notice of criminal intent in the federal court, and when we look at that, we'll give it the same credence as an official eviction, like we wanted to do through Rush in the lower court, but we couldn't because the fucker was smart and filed a bankruptcy. All these issues lawyer. Oh, another thing we didn't know, for over a year, till we filed suit for this incident 1 year later. And we didn't know Shelley Sweet worked for the sheriff's department. All we knew was that she worked for my sister, who's a doctor in Mount Pleasant, and she got fired because she couldn't go to work on Mondays because she partied all weekend. Okay, she called in sick one too many times on Monday for her partying habits and got her ass fired. And then got pissed off at my sister and took it out on us when we're not even really that close. Our deal to buy the house from her had nothing to do with my sister. So at some point after my sister fired her and she'd sold the house, or she'd sold the house to us, some point in here, my sister fired her in 2010 and she got a job with the sheriff's department. And then when all of this happened, I guess it doesn't take too long once you're in the department to be, in that thin fucking blue line, and solids are done for you. Because that's exactly what happened. Clinton Steiner came to our house twice this day, watched Robert Wheeler steal shit and drive off with it, claiming they had an order of eviction, but he had to go get it. So Steiner let Robert Wheeler drive off of our property with a truckload of stolen shit to go get a warrant that didn't exist. He shows up 45 minutes later driving a different vehicle, no stolen content, and no fucking order. We got our house back after the second visit. But first, Steiner said, you guys go in the house, collect anything you might have brought in there, and then get out of here. And Steiner gave us the key, jumped in his car, and left. Okay, when Steiner knew we hadn't been in the house. We didn't know that the house was fucking completely looted at this point. So Steiner did, and Wheeler did, and Shelley Sweet did. Okay, because they were, all three of them in two different vehicles were off of our property before we made entry to the property. So we finally get a key back, we go in and we're like, what the fuck? All our shit's gone. So I called to report grand larceny. Steiner comes back and kidnaps me. I honest to God thought he was going to take me down a 2-track somewhere and put a bullet in my head. I mean, that's how fucking bizarre this whole day was. But no, he took me, showing me who the boss was. Instead of going to the jail, we drove past the jail. We drove past the jail and we went to a gas station where I was prisoner. I was his prisoner, handcuffed behind my back in the hard plastic sheriff department police seats while he's fucking getting gas, laughing the whole time. He brings me back. They don't know how to book me. What did he do wrong? Well, I don't know. There's no code for this. Well, we're gonna have to make it up. So that's what they did. They made up a fucking code for misuse of 911 because it didn't exist. It had never been used before. So anyways, like I said, all of this shit is working together, but the cops and the lawyers, they help each other out. The courts and the cops and the lawyers, they're all on the same team. I decided to run for sheriff in 2012, and the elections were held on November 6, 2012. At some point prior, I had applied for a concealed carry permit, and the state used that opportunity to call me ignorant and belligerent, and they'd actually pulled up a police report where I had reported road rage, and they used that police report like I was the one committing the road rage, and denied me my concealed carry application, my permit. They denied me the little plastic card because they said I could be a threat to myself and to others. In a sense, it was a clinical diagnosis of suicidal and homicidal. That's why I didn't get my little plastic card, like I was going around slitting people's throats with it. So when you're denied a concealed carry permit in the state of Michigan, that doesn't mean you can't open carry. Okay, and it doesn't mean you can't constitutional carry. It doesn't mean you can't own or possess firearms or weapons or rifles, any of the above. So they took that opportunity because I was running for sheriff to deny me that so that they could do it. And here's another thing, is the Morning Sun has been a mouthpiece for the county through this entire thing. The Morning Sun actually claimed that we'd been evicted here. Okay, Sheriff Leo Medashevsky told the Morning Sun that we'd been evicted, and we never were. We never were. But our sheriff lied. Okay? And down here, again, the bank ran their ad in the newspaper to foreclose on this property. Okay? And the bank converted our 12-month redemption period into a 6-month redemption period, unlawfully. Okay, this isn't the first time they tried to foreclose. They tried to foreclose back here, and we declared bankruptcy, and they stopped, and then they started again down here because they've run into the statute of limitations. And the reason they put a 6-month redemption period instead of a 12-month redemption period is because they'd already gone past the statute of limitations and could no longer foreclose on our property. Okay, they couldn't. So here we go. And also, you know, I draw this correlation between insurance companies and the state because there's a relationship there. The state makes it law that you have auto insurance, right? Okay, they're a beneficiary to that whole arrangement. It's all done through fraud. Now, on December 8th, 2014, my wife hits a deer. 4-point buck with their 2013 Ford Fusion. If you've ever seen those cars, they look like spaceships. They're all plastic in the front. And that 4-point buck destroyed the front end of that car, the pretty stuff, but didn't do any structural damage to the front of the car. USAA was my insurance company, and they committed insurer fraud by refusing to repair the damage because they knew that there was $7,500 worth of inequity in the vehicle. Okay, they quoted that it was the price to repair was too close to the state mandated 70% damage as per the cash value of the vehicle, and said they weren't going to fix it. They could only total it. And I understand that, you know, if you really screw up a vehicle, it makes sense to total it at some point. Okay, but this decision was to financially fuck me again. Okay? So what I did after this accident is I took the car, I did all the demolition myself, and I took the car and I got three fixed price estimates for repair that were all below 65% of the cash value of the car, and submitted those to USA Auto Insurance. These were cash price bids. I'm a contractor, right? If I say I'm going to build you a house for $650,000, I'm not going to give you a bill for $670,000. That's not how it works. Unless you've added some stuff and I've agreed to it. But then there's a change order. I had 3 fixed price estimates to fix this car under 65%, and USA Auto Insurance for veterans, I'm a veteran, fucked me. That's insurance fraud. Okay, what happened when they fucked me? Well, they left us with no car. But here's the uptick. We still have a loan on a car that we don't have. So we can drive the damaged car that we can't insure because the front end's off of it. Everything works fine, except there's no headlights. So we can only drive it, you know, on nice clear days and not at night, or not. Okay, USAA Auto Insurance committed insurance fraud, and they did it on purpose to saddle us with still having a car loan and no car. It was intentional. So, and yeah, that's that. So I want to put in a part right here, right now, about the state's militia, okay? Back here, I didn't know anything about the militia. I didn't know anything about banks and lawyers or any of that. But when this happened, I notified every militia group in Michigan that the sheriff department had just stolen my house and its contents. And not a single one of them got back to me. Okay, they pretended I didn't exist. They said I was. They didn't even talk to me. Okay, so this incident was well known by the alleged militia here in Michigan. I call them the social media militia, which is basically a... So they knew about this, okay? So when I cut the video down here on July 11th and uploaded it to YouTube after Eric James denied us the ability to defend ourselves, the first shots of the Revolution video that went viral. And in this video, I just need to clarify this, I did not ask the militia for help. In fact, I said I was making the stand alone. Because I knew from 5 years ago that we didn't have a militia here in Michigan that I even wanted to associate with. So here we are down here, I cut the first shots of the Revolution video. John Madden and Mike Tony come to my house on the 12th, and by 8 p.m. on the 12th issue a press release with 22 militia groups, alleged militia groups, that were all standing together to disavow me like I was some kind of freaking idiot. Okay? Mike Tony and John Madden, traitors to this country, fake patriots, fake militia, whatever. Yeah, they got M16s. Good for you. It takes more than that to be in the militia. So anyways, the first shots of the Revolution video, or the court where Eric James denied us standing as defendants without dismissing the case and then ruling for the bank and taking our property. The following day on the 11th, I created and uploaded a video of the first shots of the Revolution. And the next day on the 12th, these fake patriots with M16s came over to my house, said, we want to see your loan documents so that we can prove to the world your constitutional rights have been violated. What? And they spelled loan, L-O-N-E, like the Lone Ranger instead of L-O-A-N for like, you know, financial documents. So yeah, we want to see your loan documents so we can tell the world that your constitutional rights have been violated. You're not seeing my loan documents. You can't even fucking spell them. Get off my property. So they took that because we ordered the transcripts. Keep in mind, this is the 12th. We had court on the 10th, 2 days prior. We ordered the transcripts immediately. We didn't get the transcripts until the 14th, which was a freaking miracle. The county never works that fast to get me transcripts, but we had them on the 14th. But it didn't matter. Okay? It didn't matter because Mike Tony and John Madden told everybody on the 12th that we refused to give them proof that our constitutional rights were being violated, because they wanted to find that information in the loan documents instead of in the court documents, the transcripts, where Eric James denies us standing as defendants. So they issue this press release. Oh, coincidentally, this militia also has the same thing published in the Morning Sun. You know, the Morning Sun, is always posting stuff about anti-government stuff, but all of a sudden now, they're running with a press release created by these alleged 22 militia groups that, they're disavowing me and issuing a nationwide stand-down order. And it's funny that all that happened so fast. We had court on the 10th, denied standing. On the 11th, I cut the first shots of the Revolution video, and on the 12th, by 8 p.m., the entire nation's interest that was generated from my video going viral was completely shut off. 100% successful shutting down any real militia that were going to respond, and there were a lot. Okay, but these fake patriots got up, did what they did, and shut everything down. So, if we're going to wait for the militia to actually be functional and do something for us in this country, it ain't going to happen, folks. Okay? It ain't going to happen. Just like the Pacific Patriot Network shut down all the interest in the standoff on federal land. I don't agree with creating a standoff on federal land, but I do understand where LaVoy Finicum was coming from when he says, I'm not going to go to a box, because look what we've got, okay? Lavoy Finicum already knew this stuff was happening, whereas I didn't when it started happening. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. This year, 2016, Danny Austin and I had our baby girl, Stormy. And for obvious reasons, we didn't want the state to be involved. We don't have, Stormy doesn't have a birth certificate. Okay? At some point throughout here, I had declared my independence from the state, which is the bar. Okay? I'm not going to be governed by the bar. They can't govern themselves. The police don't govern themselves, so why would I allow them to govern me? Okay? Eric James denied me standing in court, but gave the bank my fucking house. So, you know, these are the things that are happening. And somewhere in here, Paul Chamberlain is the alleged chief judge after I had recorded Mark Duthie, alleged county judge Mark Duthie, denying Danny Austin her children, which is another thing I forgot to talk about here, but is equally important. This was July 23rd, 2014. Danny Austin's 3 children were taken by Isabella County, the same county that stole my house, took her 3 children without a court order. Okay? CPS created a petition, gave it to the court, and the court denied the petition to take her children and never gave them back. Did you hear me? They took her children without a court order. They had a petition in front of the court to take her children, and it was denied. And she never got her children back. Instead, what they did is they dropped the case against her because they realized it was all fucked up from the beginning, and they forced the disposition of her children into family court instead of CPS court, where they ruled for the father and gave the children like hot potatoes to the dad, you know, after they'd stolen them from her. So anyways, the fraudulent foreclosure sale happened in November of 2014, and I put the sheriff's department on notice. I let them know it was a fraudulent sheriff's sale and never heard back from them. Didn't want to hear from the militia, and they showed up at my house. So that's where we're at. I can't run for sheriff this year in Isabella County because they forced me out. And we've lost 7 properties. We've got the Michigan State Police working to slander my character by calling me a volatile person. The Isabella County Gun Board denying me my concealed carry permit when I was running for sheriff. The sheriff, Leo Medashevsky, running against me, didn't have a single sign out. Past the, he was running against Hall for Republican. And after he won the Republican bid, all of his signs went down and he went dark, because at that point in time, when you Googled his name, it brought you up to all this information as best as I had it back then, which I've been working on a little bit since then, but it was pretty bulletproof right from day one. You don't have to know anything about the law to recognize when you're getting fucking ripped off. Okay? I don't care who you are. If you record a deed in fraud, you're a fucking criminal. Okay? But who's going to take a police report and go track down a bar lawyer and charge him with felony fraud and the theft of my house? Same over here. The sheriff's department stole my house. Who do I call? Where do I go? And by the way, the Michigan Attorney General, Bill Schuette, knows all of this shit too, and at one point had claimed to be conducting a criminal investigation. The FBI too was stringing me along, telling me they were conducting a criminal investigation into the allegations of the sheriff's department stealing my house, blah, 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 blah. But it was a fucking shine job, folks. Yeah, we're doing this. We got your back, man. We're checking it out. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. We're checking it out, man. We'll get back to you. 5 year. Fuck you. The crimes I'm pointing out here are simple. Tony Crodet, you piece of shit. federal fucking agent in my ass. You're a piece of shit. You're a fucking piece of shit. Okay, this is simple. These are federal crimes. The entire sheriff's department. Garbage, junk. The whole thing should be shut down. Okay, the bar needs to be shut down, folks. You know, Isabella County Sheriff's Department and the Michigan Bar and every lawyer needs to be shut down. And we need to start handling our stuff in court as people, as we the people. Hey, this asshole stole this property from me by fraudulently recording a deed on April 15th and filing it with the Register of Deeds, stealing my property and the equity. He's an asshole. I don't need case law for that. He's a fucking asshole. Same over here. Sheriff's Department stole my house. They're all a bunch of fucking assholes. You know, no one will cross the thin blue line. Who's going to write me a police report for the crime that took place so that I can be made whole, so that I can seek redress? They're fucking assholes. Okay? You don't need case law for that. They're criminals. Okay? That's how simple this is, guys. It's simple. We got to stop thinking like lawyers, because that's what fucked us in the first place. Case law, case law, case law. Well, where's your case law? What do you mean, case law? You think I need to go fucking find case law that's being hidden from me in the first place to say that these cops shouldn't have fucking committed this crime? This lawyer shouldn't have committed this crime? And this crime was covering for this crime? And Danny Austin's kids being stolen was covering from all previous crimes? And that these things, most recently, the loss of my last fucking house in Blanchard, to the same fucking pukes that stole my house right here, covering for here? I need to learn case law? Fuck you. Crime, 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 crime. The point here is when police and lawyers commit crimes, you know, the people have nowhere to go. You know, I've exhausted every resource. I've been to the Attorney General. I've been to the Rick Snyder. You know, I post stuff on their Facebook, and they pretend they don't see it. You know, they use plausible deniability when they don't deserve to be able to use plausible deniability. They know about me. They know who I am. But they pretend they have plausible deniability. Paul Chamberlain, I was in court on 7/29 or thereabouts in regards to complaint number, or actually district court case number 13-1630-F something, FR or FT or something like that. Okay, it was the Brzezinski case. And the reason this case interested me so much was because Mr. Brzezinski pulled a gun on somebody. He was on his own property, pulled a gun, didn't shoot, didn't fire, and by using his gun, de-escalated a potentially violent situation. Okay, and that was it. Cops showed up, took a report. Well, I forget how long time had passed, but there's a cop. His name is David Sabuda. Dave Sabuda. Dave Sabuda is sitting at the police department, flipping through the previous month's shit, right? Flipping through. He gets to this case, and he goes, "Oh, here's a juicy one." So he fills out a criminal complaint as a first-hand witness. Did you hear what I just said? 3 cops are named for being there, having first-hand knowledge of the incident, and David Sabuda created an affidavit for warrant as if he were there. He wasn't there. He never even claimed to be there. He perjured himself, which is a 15-year felony. Why? To generate revenue for the county. These things are happening every single day. I don't even have to look. I can go to the county and pull one court file and find terminal ailments with it. September 17th, 30 or 40 cops were involved, according to John Tellis' testimony at my trial, to take me down. I had 2 trial dates: squatting and trespassing on my own property, and operating without registration and without insurance. I wasn't caught operating. When I saw the cops, I was standing in the parking lot on my phone. 30 to 40 cops, according to Tellis, not a fucking one of them testified that they saw anything that I was charged with. Nothing. The only piece of evidence submitted at my trial was the bullshit order of possession entered by alleged Judge Eric James. At my trial in November, this was the only piece of evidence submitted. Okay, and because all of my charges were misdemeanors, I was denied discovery. Okay, I was charged with a crime and not allowed to see the evidence against me. At my trial, the county cooked the jury. 7 people were put in the box immediately, the jury box, okay? Misdemeanor, 6-person jury with a reserve or an alternate, so there's 7. So 65 people summoned to court. Risa Scully and Isabella County do this shit every day. They picked the first 7 into the box. Well, at pre-trial, the judge at my trial, another dipshit, part of the terrorist cell in Isabella County, he said I have 5 reasons for cause to get rid of jurors and 5 preemptory challenges to get rid of juries, for a total of 10. This was in pre-trial. At my trial, he changed those numbers to 3 each, because somebody must have went up to him and said, "Hey, we're missing our key folks here that will guarantee our win. So we got to change the number of challenges Visner gets to get rid of the jurors." And from the 6 now that I have, I was denied the ability to use preemptive challenges completely. So I was cut down to 3. Okay, there was 2 people in my jury. One was a freaking family member of the judge or magistrate, whoever the hell it was, that signed my warrant. A blood relative, same last name. I couldn't get rid of her using my preemptory challenge. She had skin in the game, okay? A relative of hers is the one that did the warrant on me. I couldn't get rid of her. The spouse of the 911 call center, Isabella County. The spouse of the manager that runs the Isabella County 911 call center in the sheriff's department that sold my house. I couldn't get rid of her. So I had to use my challenges for cause. And then after I got rid of those 2, I'm like, I'm screwed, I didn't even use my 3rd one. What difference does it make? My point here is that Risa Scully and the county loaded the jury box with 7 people, okay? They actually got rid of 1, and 1 had a medical excuse. That got to go away. But for the counties in Michigan to establish a jury that will give them a verdict they want, they desire, is not hard to do. Okay, there's 44,000 elected, or 45,000 registered voters in Isabella County. All of those registered voters are called to jury duty, except me. And from that pool, they maintain notes, they create databases. And of the 65 people, they can make sure that they have some people in there that are going to vote for the county and finding of guilt. Whenever the challenge is between the state and the county, or the people like me, or anybody, and the state. So it's not hard to cook a jury. So the bottom line to that is, Risa Scully in Isabella County only needed to have confidence in the first 13 people when there was 65 people in the gallery. They only needed to have confidence in the first 13 to 15. So how hard is it to get 13 or 15 people, you know, when, hey guys, we need this, we need you to show up, we need to be a juror, we need a finding of guilt. Okay, this is obviously not on the front page of the Morning Sun, because the Morning Sun is actually the mouthpiece for the same county that's doing all this shit. So they're in bed together. So that's how they cook juries, okay? They take away the challenges of the defendant. They deny discovery to the defendant, and then they cook the jury to find a unanimous verdict of guilt on the submission of not a fucking piece of evidence. Not one. 30 or 40 cops in my takedown, not a fucking one of them called as a witness, didn't say on the stand that they witnessed nothing. The idiot in the cornfield over my house didn't say he saw me on my property, but I was found guilty by the jury. The idiots that followed me, allegedly followed me driving, didn't see me. There were no direct witnesses against me, but they got a finding of guilt. Now here's something I want to make clear right now. On September 17, 2015, I was kidnapped, thrown in jail for 8 days. My bond was over $200,000 for 4 misdemeanors, okay? 4 misdemeanors. 4 misdemeanors, my bond set at $200,000. William T. Urban does me a solid, right? He changes my $200,000 to $20,000 cash only. I don't know if you know how this works, but you know, if your bail set at $200,000, you only need to come up with the 10% cash equivalent in hard assets to post bond. So the way my bail was set originally was $200,000 or 10% cash. But William T. Urban, doing me this solid, changed my bond from $200,000, which is excessive bail, to $20,000 cash only. So it was $20,000 cash solid at that amount, and not 10% of that, which would have been $2,000. So I had to have people put up $20,000 for 4 misdemeanors in Isabella County, so they could cook a jury and find me guilty, keep my bond, blah, 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 justify having me unlawfully incarcerated for 8 days. And while I was in jail, I discovered that the contents of my house were all stolen and thrown in dumpsters and put on property somewhere. While I was in jail, I was told that my property, my personal property that was on my property, was put into storage containers and was being held in a safe place. Well, the fucking storage containers that was a safe place was dumpsters. 7 dumpsters. Everything from my property was thrown into 7, and I mean thrown into 7 dumpsters. My riding lawnmower thrown into a dumpster with 30 hours on it. Riding lawnmower with 30 hours was thrown in a dumpster. All of my dumpsters were carted 25 miles north of my property. So when I got out of jail, 8 days, after being there 8 days, and it rained a lot of those days in September, I find the property and I find that I can't go on the property without the police being there. So I'm at the property, I'm waiting for the police, and they send like 3 or 4 units. The Isabella County Sheriff's Department has to be with me on this private property for me to pick through my dumpsters. Well, it had been raining and the tarps were all holding the water in, and nothing was tarped for the shit to begin with. So everything that was in the dumpsters was exposed to the moisture, and I got pictures and it's all documented. But while I was in jail, I got a call from a friend of mine, John Bendley. And John said that he was going to help me replace my computers so that I could continue my work, this work, the work that I do. And that was the thing I was most pissed off about, was that I was still in jail, I knew that my computers were either destroyed or stolen, but then if they sat out in the rain, they were most likely destroyed, and if they were even in the dumpsters at all, they'd be ruined. So after I got out of jail, I spent the better part of 2 weeks going through, I think I had 8 or 9 days to go through the dumpsters. And I went through every single one of them. Not a single laptop to be found, not a single camera to be found. I found my toothbrush, you know, needle in a haystack. I found a lot of things I didn't expect to find. But my computers weren't there. I found the monitors, and surprisingly, a couple of them still work. But there wasn't a single laptop, and there were 3 of them. I had 2 on my desk upstairs and 1 downstairs, and they were all gone. So when I was in jail, my friend, like I said, my friend called me over the jail phone, which was recorded by the Isabella County Sheriff's Department and run by the Isabella County Sheriff's Department. And my friend John Bentley says, I'm going to help you replace your computers. I've got a crop coming to harvest, and I'm going to use the proceeds to get you set back up. Okay, now this is important. That stupid conversation was had over the jail phone. So the Isabella County Sheriff's Department heard John Bentley tell Ted Visner that as soon as he harvests his crop, he's going to buy me computers and probably a new camera too. So I'm in jail from September 17th to September 25th. I get out on the 25th. The first thing I do is go try and get my stolen vehicles back that were now impound with fees and fines over $2,200. And I'm working on that, and 2 days after I'm released from jail, because friends and family raised $20,000 cash, on September 27th, 2 days after I'm out of jail, John Bentley's house is raided, his marijuana crop stolen by the Isabella County Sheriff's Department and the Saginaw Chippewa Tribal Police. That's no coincidence, folks. John Bentley was going to help Ted Visner, stated so over the jailhouse phone, and then was raided. His cash crop seized, and John was charged with 7 felonies, and his bond was $7,000. So he had to come up with $700 to get out on bail. 7 felonies. He's charged with 7. I was charged with 4 misdemeanors. My bond was $200,000. John is charged with 7 felonies. His bail is set at $7,000, of which 10% is $700. So he gets out of jail almost immediately. I almost didn't even know he was in jail because I was still rounding up my shit, trying to go through my dumpsters. Meanwhile, the Isabella County Sheriff's Department has 3 cars there for the first 3 days that I'm going through my dumpsters, and they're just paying these sheriff's deputies to sit there and watch me. It's freaky. Anyways, the sheriff's department seized all my rifles, gave them back the day I showed up to get my shit out of the dumpsters. My rifles were actually locked in a 16-foot tool trailer, but my handgun was stolen by the cops, and they never gave it back. Well, I demanded my handgun back. I forget when it was. I think it was in January 2016, and Sheriff Leo Medashevsky said, well, I'll give you your handgun back, but you have to register it first. I said, okay, show me the law that says I have to register my handgun. So he sends me the Michigan compiled law. He claims that it mandates me to register my handgun. Well, first off, a handgun isn't even in the law that he sent me. I forget the number now, but you can look it up. Or it's in my earlier stuff. So anyways, handgun or registering, registered, doesn't appear in what he sent me at all anywhere. So I call him up. I said, I'm coming to get my handgun on such and such a day at such and such a time. I said, I'm not going to be armed when I show up. I'm going to come alone, and I don't expect to have any trouble picking up my handgun. He says, well, you can do that, and I'm going to have to, write you a citation for failure to register your handgun. I said, the fuck you are. I said, I'm gonna come get it, and you're gonna give it to me, and I'm gonna leave. We're not gonna have any issues. I'm just gonna leave with it. So that's what I did. I went to the sheriff's department, and Kevin Dush Jr., super polite, brings it out, shows it to me, takes it out of the box, makes it work, gives it all back to me and says, here you go. And I'm like, where's my citation? He's like, I don't know anything about that. So, there is no law in the state of Michigan that requires you to register your handguns. Even though every cop on the street, every sheriff will tell you that you have to register your handguns, there is no law in the state of Michigan that requires you to register your handguns. So that's where I'm going to wrap this up. There's more stuff in here at various places, and I might do a follow-up to this after I review it. We're probably already close to an hour and a half, which is going to be a really long edit. And I'm sorry about the lighting. It just happened to be thundering today, and I can't have the doors open. But stay tuned. There's going to be some cool stuff happening. And again, if you haven't got the big picture yet, that the fight is actually with the State Bar of Michigan. The State Bar of Michigan is destroying our state, our nation state, and they're using the cops to do it. Catch on, folks. The Michigan State Bar membership, all these people that are pushing the New World Order are bar members. Okay, and it's time that we know this. It's time that we take action against it. So, till next time, Ted Visner signing off. Hope you enjoyed this presentation.